Sorry, your topic tips. All right, 10 minutes. I'm going to give you the opening statements. You can present what you want to talk about. We'll go from there. All right?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I'm grateful to have this opportunity. I'm glad to meet you. My name is John Paul. I am the president of my Turning Point USA chapter at UC Berkeley, and I'm also the editor-in-chief of the California Review. And my claim tonight is going to be that abortion is prima facie morally impermissible. And now I think that there are two reasons that I have for this. Mostly is that I think you can intrinsic moral value in a fetus, and you can find extrinsic moral value in a fetus. I'm going to start with the extrinsic part. So I think we need to have a good theory for the wrongness of killing, and I think the proper theory for the wrongness of killing would also indicate that it is wrong to abort a fetus. And now when we think of, I'm going to assume that we agree that killing a 2-year-old is wrong, just axiomatically. So let's say it's wrong to kill a 2-year-old, and I think the main reason, or one of the primary reasons why it is wrong to kill a 2-year-old is because you are harming the 2-year-old directly in some way. So it must always be there. The harm must be there. And the harm that I would choose is that you are depriving the 2-year-old of a future like ours, of a humanly future, and that you are robbing him of all the goods and lives that he would have had, or could have had in his future by aborting it. I also think that there is intrinsic moral value in a human fetus, in that a human fetus is a being of a rational kind, and that it possesses a rational capacity at some point in the fetus's future or in the fetus's life, it will experience rationality and it will be a rational creature. So those are my two primary claims. I would like to hear what you have to say about that.
Sure. So the first thing I would say is, when you kick a rock, are you harming a rock?
No.
Okay, so when we speak of harm, what are we talking about?
Right. So I think harm is when you're depriving someone of goods that they should have had.
Okay, and then when we say someone, what are we referring to there?
Right, I am
so like, for instance, let's say I have a corpse on a table. Let's say you have a corpse, and I punch that corpse, or I chop that corpse's arm off, like committing a harm.
Right. I would refer to an individual like that, and largely in this case, from the moment of conception, we have a formation of an individual who now has a future like ours. So like you mentioned talking about like the corpse, right? I'm assuming you might say something like a fetus before 16 weeks doesn't have consciousness and so forth. But I would say in this case it's different. It doesn't matter that the fetus is not conscious yet. It matters that the fetus has a future of consciousness that would be uninterrupted had you not aborted the fetus.
Sure, but you can make the same thing you can make that exact same argument for contraception, right?
I don't think so. You can't make the same argument for contraception because there's no individual that you're being harmed. There's a difference between potential humans and humans with potential. We are talking about humans with potential.
Well, but so I think that there's a trick I think that is played when it comes to talking about the potential for future life. It feels like in that statement there is a built-in concession that there's not something worth protecting at that very moment, so we have to point towards the future to find something worth protecting. But if that thing isn't worth protecting at that very moment, and we're looking at like potentiality for a future thing, I don't know how you remove that potentiality from a contraceptive sexual engagement.
Right. Well, I mean, the key, and this is something that even Peter Singer would concede, is that there is no individual between a sperm cell and an egg cell. I mean, you can point to an individual. I don't see an individual there. There's an individual. But something that I would say is that you mentioned the thing about consciousness a lot, and how that is when a fetus becomes like identifiable as a moral agent. And so
that's when you can harm it.
Well, what I would say about that is that you are, it could lead to logical absurdities. The logical absurdity that I would like to point to is, well, first of all, it seems that before that moment, there's no way you can harm a fetus, correct? Is there any way someone can harm a fetus before 16 weeks?
Well, I mean, it depends what you mean when you say harm. If you can harm a rock, then yeah, you can harm a fetus.
Okay, so I will take it like in the same way like as harm. So I would say in your case I would assume not really. So
you can't harm a fetus and say you can harm a conscious.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I will start on that premise. So let's say so there's a drug called thalidomide. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And thalidomide is a drug that is used to treat morning sickness and nausea for pregnant women. However, in doing so, this was kind of discovered in the 1950s, 1960s. By using thalidomide, there were children who were born with deformations, like they'd be born without hands, without limbs. Sometimes it could even kill them. And so currently, we would indicate that as a harm because it's clearly wrong to take thalidomide before 16 weeks and to cause a fetus to be born without arms.
I agree, but the thing that you're causing harm to there isn't a future potential life. You are actually harming the future potential life.
Right. So that, like, if I would have said that you care about the future.
Well, no, you wouldn't have committed a crime if you aborted, or you committed a moral wrong if you had aborted the baby prior to the 16 weeks. But if you allow it to come to fruition, you haven't committed harm there. Much the same that if I were to put like the Joker, I were to put a pencil on this table, I haven't committed a harm. But if later on I smash somebody's head on the table and they get, gouged out their eye, well then I say,
You don't think killing removes you of your future? I think it's very clear that a fetus has a future, and by killing it,
there's two people having sex together can produce a being with a future.
Yeah, that's right. It
So
can't,
if
but
the thing
there is no
is-
being that is there.
Yeah, but there's no thing worth protecting if we're having to appeal to a future state. If we're saying that the only reason why we're
I think that's a primary reason. I don't think it's the only reason.
well, sure, but I'm saying I wouldn't consider this reason at all.
Well, would you? So currently it's legal to administer thalidomide to a pregnant woman if you're a doctor. You wouldn't legalize that, would you?
No, I would say that's unethical if you're going to be destroying the experience of future children. I think that's bad.
Okay, so it's okay. My thing is here is that you have to either appeal to the current state of the fetus in terms of your harming, or the future state of the fetus. So you're saying that it's wrong because you birthed a fetus with deformations, whereas like if you took the thalidomide and then you got an abortion, then it wouldn't be wrong. But I think this makes an error because we clearly know that there must be harm done somewhere in some way, and it can only be in the current state or in the future. That's the only time span in which harm can be committed. You can't commit harm in the past. So when is the harm committed? Is the harm committed by proceeding with the birth? So in that case, are you saying that it's wrong to birth a child that has a deformation and
If you
not wrong?
intentionally brought about that deformation, yes. If you were to bug bomb somebody's home, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you were to bug bomb somebody's home, knowing that somebody was going to be asleep inside, then now you've committed harm because you're knowingly harming somebody. But let's say that you engage in some behavior. Well, hold on, let me finish. You engage in some behavior that's harming a fetus, you don't know you're pregnant, or you know you're pregnant, and then you have an abortion at 14 weeks. Let's say, well, there's no harm there. But if you do bring about harm by birthing the child that you knowingly harmed through your behavior before it was 16 weeks old, then I say, well, you have committed harm because the child is coming out and you harmed it.
Well, the mistake that you're making here is that you are actually appealing to a future argument. You're saying that, oh, I'm birthing a
No,
person.
because the future.
So if I took the thalidomide, I'm not a woman, so I can't get pregnant. You might disagree, but if I took the thalidomide and I was pregnant with a fetus, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm planning on having this fetus in the future, that would be wrong. But you're still appealing to a future-like argument.
I'm not. I'm appealing to an actuality. You're under the assumption that all things must come to
Well, then when
pass.
does the harm happen?
Well, the harm happens when the baby becomes a conscious being and is being harmed. When
So
there's a conscious being being harmed.
the harm is done when you take the thalidomide. That's when the
Okay, wait. Here's a question. If I set up a spike trap for somebody to trip over, have I committed a harm in setting up the trap?
You have not, unless you know that.
Careful, because that's my argument. Unless
Right,
you know,
right, no,
So if I
you-
set this
your
trap, if I
case
set
is-
this-
your case is just now, yes. Your case is just
if
now,
I
yes.
set up a trap in my basement where nobody's walking over it, then that would be the equivalent of taking the thalidomide when you have no intention of allowing that fetus to come to term. But if you set the trap up in a populated area, I say you've committed harm, right? When you set the trap up, because you know somebody's going to walk over.
That's like saying I have a customer that's coming to my burger store. I'm going to put a bear trap in front of it because I know that he's walking over. I'm actually going to kill him before he goes to right. I mean, I know that's kind of just.
Well, but the difference is that you already have a person to harm or speak of, right?
Right. But the thing is that you're preventing him from
Putting a bear trap in front of your couch, which would be unethical, right?
He's going to go into the burger place.
Well, here, going over the trap thing. Is setting the trap wrong because I'm valuing future harms?
It is if the person is going to the store.
Exactly. If the fetus is going to graduate to a sentient being.
fetus is already going to the store, so to speak.
If the fetus is already going to the store, you wouldn't have to make any arguments about future harm. You would just make the immediate harm argument.
Right, I do think it is immediate harm because I do think that potentiality is actuality because this is the actual
In
way.
what
This
world
is
is
the actual way
potentiality?
that we determine why it is wrong to kill. It is wrong to kill someone because you're depriving them of their future. The same necessarily applies to a human fetus. Like if you
If
kill
I
me,
know
won't be able to
that
experience the
somebody
goods I
is
would
going
want.
to die in 2 hours, is it ethical for me to kill that person as opposed to knowing they might die in 2 days?
If someone's going to die, sorry.
Let's say I have a
someone's gonna
terminal
die-
cancer patient and they're 25 years old or whatever. Is it ethical to kill them because I know they're going to die in a few days?
No.
No, because there's a person right then and there that can speak to a harm that I committed
Yeah,
toward them.
all that person still has a future. All that matters is that there's a future there.
I don't think that that's. I don't think that we. I don't even think we conceive of it that way. I think that
Really?
we think. Yes.
You don't think a person with 2 days left to live has a future?
No, I don't think that they think.
They
I don't
only
wanna
have 2 days of
I
future.
don't think they think I don't want to. I don't want to be harmed because I'm going to lose my future. I think they think I don't want to be harmed because I don't want to be harmed. I think that it's contained within itself. The statement
Well, okay. So here's the thing. So your position about the consciousness and brain activity. We can imagine like a person who goes comatose, right? And we brain swap them, and we take a brain in the vat that's never experienced consciousness, put it into that person. Most people would agree that it's wrong to kill this person. But the only explanation we would have for that is that it is intrinsically morally valuable in the essence of having a rational capacity, or that you're depriving this being of a future like ours.
That might not true, but when you talk about like replacing brains in people, I feel like we're pushing at like the super boundaries of
Right. Well, it's a
like
thought
is it
experiment.
ethical to like turn a computer off if you transplanted your entire conscious experience to the computer? This is like I think that's like outside the bounds of. It's very hard to
Well,
draw.
I've seen you do this before, where this exact thought experiment has been asked you, and you kind of deflect the question because you know that it actually just destroys your beliefs. It's a contradiction to your thought experiment.
Well, no, I mean, if you truly had a brain that was capable of all that thought, I think you would say that even destroying the brain itself before it's put in the body would be unethical.
Right, exactly. The thing is that the person who entered the comatose and got brain swapped has a rational capacity. It hasn't been exercised yet, but that's exactly my point with the fetus. A fetus has a rational capacity.
It doesn't have the capacity. It hasn't even developed it yet.
That having a rational capacity doesn't mean that you can immediately.
It means you have the ability to play, right? For instance, if let's say that I put let's say there's a hotel over there, and I say, oh, that hotel is empty. I would say the hotel is empty because there's nobody in there right now. But if I had the building materials for a hotel over there, I wouldn't say, oh, look, the hotel is empty. I would say the hotel doesn't exist yet.
Someone is comatose, they can't immediately exercise the rationality.
Final statements.
Go ahead.
Okay, so my final statement is that I think that your position leads to logical absurdities, i.e. the brain swapping case, i.e. the thalidomide case, in that you essentially say that there's no way to harm a fetus before 16 weeks. I know you're debating the definition of harm. And I do think that you have not disproven my claim, which is sufficient, that it is a primary wrongness killing factor to kill someone because you're depriving them of their future. So that is my claim. There's intrinsic moral worth in a fetus and intrinsic moral worth in a fetus. And the two thought experiments I provided, I think, are absolutely demonstrable for your position. They completely show how the consciousness position is incoherent. And I think that by virtue of, again, the future like ours argument, these are the same metrics that you can use to show that it is wrong to kill a current person, whereas, someone who is comatose doesn't have the desire to not want to be killed.
Sure, and I mean, my position is that I feel like there's a weird hop between two worlds where sometimes you want to talk about the thing itself and the future potential of the thing. I think these things are meaningfully different things. I think in every other circumstance in life, we would draw a distinction between these things. We would never call the thing itself. And if the value that we're looking to get from the thing is the future thing, then we wouldn't defend the thing itself ever. We would only look at the future potential. But I think that represents a lot of weird conundrums like valuing, if somebody uses birth control, they're arguably destroying or depriving something of a future like ours. And then I think that the logical extension of your point of view would be a really weird world where I think you would have to mandate, like, for instance, every sexually active woman would have to be constantly going to the hospital to get checked because they could be engaged in murdering children in ways that would never be tracked by police officers. In the same
I
way
don't think that's true.
Well, I mean, like, would you say, just real quick, just a quick question, would you say there's a difference between killing a 1-year-old child and killing a 8-week-old fetus?
A difference between killing a 1-year-old child and a 8-week-old
Or would you say both of these are equivalently murder?
I would say that everyone has an equal moral right to life, and by that I mean is like we would treat it all as morally permissible.
But it sounds like would it be murder for both?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be
so
morally
then you would
permissible.
have a whole police investigation if a woman seemed to be pregnant and then at 8 weeks she suddenly wasn't pregnant. You'd have to investigate those as homicides, right?
Yeah, well, I don't think that policy making actually disproves my position. I think it's kind of
It doesn't disprove it. I'm just curious if you would follow that to its logical extension, right? You would say that we wouldn't be in a policy
I
where
need to work out the policy this making, but I would say that currently the pro-life movement agrees that women are also victims of abortion because they have been lied to by Planned Parenthood. And I would also say that we would criminalize the doctors who know that the fetus is a human life, that know that the will develop into a functioning human.
And doctors are not philosophers. That's not the job of a doctor. Is to know to define life.
A doctor knows scientifically that
science doesn't have on this. These are questions of philosophy, right?
Right. I would say it's a question of philosophy.
And I would say
that
point to
doctors aren't in a position to know.
conservatives are creating a great harm when they force women at 5 weeks pregnancy to keep their bodies alive for months and months and months to deliver a baby like they did in Georgia.
Okay, for real now. Last statement.
Okay, I'm good.
I do not want to undermine the harms and troubles that women go through when they're pregnant. It is real. But I do not think that we should provide violent solutions to these problems. We can be rational creatures and provide non-violent solutions to women that struggle with pregnancy. It's not worth killing a child over. It's not worth it. But we should do everything we can to help these women go forth with their pregnancy and to uplift them as mothers.
Awesome. Yes, America, the land of.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm bringing you a round of applause. Thank you so much. Berkeley?
Yes.
Amazing. Okay, we have you coming up next. You need water?
Thank you again.
What's your name, sir?
Grady Redmond.
Sorry?